On the night of November 27, 1976, in Dallas, Texas, police officer Robert W. Wood and his partner stopped a blue car for driving without headlights. As officer would approach the vehicle, the driver opened fire, killing him instantly. The gunman sped away, leaving few clues behind. The city was shaken, and the police were under enormous pressure to find the killer quickly. A few days later, a 16-year-old drifter named David Ray Harris was arrested in Vidia, Texas. He was driving a stolen car that matched the description of the vehicle seen at the scene of the shooting. When questioned, Harris told the police that the man who had killed the officer was a stranger he had met earlier that day, 28-year-old Randall Dale Adams. Adams was a quiet, law-abiding man from Ohio who had recently moved to Dallas looking for work. On the day of the murder, his car had run out of gas. Harris had picked him up, and they had spent part of the day together before going their separate ways. When the police brought Adams in for questioning, he cooperated fully, believing that the truth would clear him. But Harris, facing serious charges of his own, pointed the finger directly at Adams. The Dallas police accepted Harris's story without strong evidence. Adams was charged with capital murder and faced the death penalty. At his trial, the prosecution relied heavily on Harris's testimony and on three supposed eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen Adams at the scene. The physical evidence was weak, but the emotional weight of a slain police officer and the testimony of the teenager convinced the jury. Adams was convicted and sentenced to death in 1977. Adams continued to maintain his innocence, saying that Harris had dropped him off hours before the shooting and that Harris himself must have been the killer. His appeals failed, but in 1980 his death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Texas's death penalty law was unconstitutional. Adams remained behind bars for more than a decade. In the mid-1980s, filmmaker Errol Morris became interested in the case while researching a documentary about the death penalty. As he interviewed people involved in the case, he discovered deep inconsistencies in the prosecution's story. Several witnesses admitted that they had been pressured or coached by police to identify Adams. Key evidence that might have cleared him had been hidden. And most strikingly, David Ray Harris himself began boasting to others that he had been the real killer. Morris's investigation culminated in the 1988 documentary The Thin Blue Line, which presented the evidence that Adams was innocent and that Harris had likely committed the murder. The film brought national attention to the case, forcing Texas authorities to re-examine the evidence. Later that year, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned Adams' conviction, ruling that crucial evidence had been suppressed and that the testimony used against him was unreliable. In 1989, after spending more than 12 years in prison, 3 of them on death row, Randall Dale Adams was released and all charges were dropped. David Ray Harris, who had accused Adams to save himself, was never tried for Officer Wood's murder. Years later, in 1985, he committed another murder and was eventually executed in 2004. Randall Dale Adams tried to rebuild his life after his release. He filed lawsuits seeking compensation for his wrongful imprisonment, but legal technicalities prevented him from receiving significant restitution. He lived quietly in Texas, avoiding the spotlight, until his death in 2010 at the age of 61. The case of Randall Dale Adams remains one of the most striking examples of wrongful conviction in American history, a story of how an innocent man was condemned to die based on false testimony, suppressed evidence, and a rush to judgment, and how persistence and truth ultimately led to his freedom. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more updates on true life stories like this.